Thank you, Brother Hal. We are talking on building better marriages, and today I want us to think about roadblocks. If you have driven I-24 into Nashville, you probably have sit in line because of the roadblocks that they have got at the 2465 split. I have had the privilege of traveling through there several times this week, and every time I determine I am not going to come back this way again until they get this fixed, because the road slows down and you feel kind of frustrated. The other day we were going out to Ace and Rhett's T-ball game, and we was traveling along, and all of a sudden we hit that roadblock, and all that anticipation and fun kind of got turned into a little bit of frustration and stress because the freight was going to be late. You know, there can be roadblocks like that in your own marriage that can take what you thought was going to be happiness and joy and can turn it into frustration and stress and disappointment. And there's a couple of things that I want you to notice with me this morning as we think about roadblocks in a successful marriage. One of the things that we've got to learn, we talked last week about his needs and our needs. There's a couple of scriptures we can go to. We're told to love our wives. We're told to submit to our husbands. We're told not to be embittered toward our wife. And that's true. Embitterment can go either way. Wife toward husband, husband toward wife. Either way. And one of the things that you've got to understand is that we are different. We talked about differences last week, and tonight we discussed them once again in our discussion group. And one of the things that really can help your marriage a lot is to learn that you are different, and that means there's some things about him, ladies, you're not going to change. There's some things about her, men, that you're not going to change. And one of the things is not trying to put people in boxes. You know, I'm going to make them change. The Bible tells us in 1 Peter chapter 3 that the way that we can convert our mate is not by words of manipulation, but by behavior and conduct of faith. In other words, we teach them a lesson by showing them the truth rather than trying to manipulate them with words. And it's important that we understand this, that we understand that we're not going to be able to change. Let me tell you, young people, if you're anticipating getting married, and if you're dating somebody and you're kind of thinking, you know, I might marry him or her, but there's some things about them that I need to change, then that's a really bad sign right there. That's a big red flag that's waving up here saying, hey, you need to look at this, because let me tell you, you don't change people. You don't change people. You don't make people do anything. And if they're not willing to do that for you before you get married, they're not going to be willing to make that change after you get married. I can guarantee you that. I've seen some very disappointed husbands and some disappointed wives because they believe that they can change that person, and you can't change people. You can't change that. It'll lead to frustration, stress, and anger if you're not careful. You know, I find it, as we're talking here about 1 Peter, notice what he says in 1 Peter chapter 3, and he is talking about the wives here in verse 3, chapter 3, verse 3. Your adornment must not be merely external, braiding of hair and wearing golden jewelry and putting on dresses, but let it be of a hidden person in the heart, with the imperishable quality of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is precious in the sight of God. For in such way, in former times, the holy women also, who hoped in God, used to adorn themselves, being submissive to their own husbands, just as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord. And you have become her child if you do what is right without being frightened by any fear. Now, let me just tell you a real quick story. Our time is going way fast. But years ago, I had a friend by the name of Roy Kilpatrick. And Roy was an old man, and he had had pneumonia, just case after case and case of pneumonia. And so, you know, with pneumonia, once you have it 3 or 4 times, it's real easy to get again. And his wife, Janie, realized that, and there was times that she did not want him to get sick. And so we could be at church or at somebody's house, say at a Christmas party or something, and it would be kind of cold and raining, and he would say, well, honey, it's time to go. Boy, she would jump up, and she would say, well, let me go warm up the car. And she would run outside, and she would get the car started. Or if they were at church and it was raining outside, she'd say, honey, you just wait right here, and I'll pull the car up, and you get in, and you won't get wet. Well, now, what kind of looks do you think she got doing that? Well, she realized that if he gets out there in that rain, he gets wet, he gets sick, she's got to take care of him. If he gets out on these cold nights in a cold car, he could get pneumonia, and she's the one that's got to take care of him. It went on that way for a number of years. It kind of became a joke to where when people would look real funny at Roy, when Janie would say, well, let me go get the car for you so you won't get wet, or let me go warm the car up for you, 20 degrees outside. They'd look at him real funny, and he'd just smile and say, she also calls me Lord. And it was just kind of a little inside joke there. She called me Lord. But she was doing that because she loved him and she didn't want him to get sick. It wasn't any type of submission thing at all. But he would get a kick out of the way people would look at him whenever his wife would say, well, don't you get out in that rain, because I know if you do, you're going to get sick. I know that, and I'm the one who's going to take care of you. So I just soon go get wet, let you get in and stay dry, and then you can go to work and make money to bring home. So that was the situation. But I want you to notice here that he says that we don't change. God changes people. You realize, and this is one thing that we've got to understand, we do not change people. Who changes people? God changes people. Did you know if you try to change a person, you're going to end up frustrated? You start praying about your mate, and you say, Lord, they need to change, and they need to do this, and they need to do that, and I'm here praying in behalf that you'll change them so I can be happy in life. And then if it doesn't take place, you want to get mad at God. You don't say, well, prayer is not working. And what's the Lord trying to tell you there? Well, you're saying they need to change, and the Lord say, well, maybe he's not the one that needs to change. You go, well, Lord, it's not him and me. I mean, I know it's not me that needs to change. It's him, And maybe the Lord's trying to send us a message that maybe we need to do some changing ourselves. When you pray for your mate in this idea of change, and let me tell you, God will not work where you are working. If you're trying to manipulate and mold and change people, God's not going to work there because he's not going to share his glory with anybody. He's the one who does the change, and the change has to come from the inside out. Now, you can express behavior that will help them to see what they need to do, number one, and then number two, you can pray for them. How do you pray for your mate? Let me tell you how to pray for your mate. Write this down. When you pray for your husband, wives, when you pray for your husbands, when you pray for your wives, you pray this way right here. You start off this way. Lord, help me. And then you write down whatever it is you need to do to help them. So you don't say, Lord, change old Steve over here because he's just a conniver and he's a manipulator and he's always undercutting me and he doesn't respect me and he doesn't love me and I need you to change him. No, pray, Lord, help me as his wife to do what I need to do. Make him a better husband. Lord, number two, mold me. Mold me into the person that he needs to be. Lord, number three, change me. So there's a difference, isn't it? Now that's how you cause change in your marriage. Because you may find out that it really wasn't him that needed change, it wasn't her that needed change, it was you that needed change. And incidentally, you're in control of who? Nobody but yourself. You cannot make anybody do anything. Now, I'm kind of closing with the introduction. We're going to look at the rest of this lesson next week. But I want you to look with me in 1 Peter chapter 3. I just want to read from the Amplified Version, verse 2. When they observe the pure and modest way in which you conduct yourselves together with your reverence for your husband, you are to feel for him. All the reverence includes respect, defer to, reverence him, to honor, esteem, appreciate, prize, and in the human sense to adore him. That is to admire, praise, be devoted to, deeply loved, and enjoy your husband. Now let me ask you a question. Wives, how long has it been since you have enjoyed your husband. Husbands, how long has it been since you have enjoyed your wife? As long as you have him or her on the potter's wheel, trying to remold him and remake him and remodel him, you're not going to enjoy him. As long as you have her on the potter's wheel, and you're trying to change them and remake them and remold them and remodel them, you're not going to enjoy them. You ever remodeled your kitchen? How much use did you get out of your kitchen during the process of remodeling? Stoves down, refrigerators pulled out, you're eating out of McDonald's bags. Not much joy in that kitchen, is it? It's only when you restore that kitchen and get it back up and running and healthy do you then be able to go there and cook those fine meals that you enjoy. And the same thing is about marriage. Folks, we've got to learn to live with grace and mercy with one another. That's what it takes. Whenever you put somebody in a box and you have determined, either you have told them or you have said it to yourself, I'm going to make that person do this, or I'm going to make her do that, and I'm going to put them in the law. The only thing the law does is make somebody want to do it more. Isn't that right? I tell you today, don't you need another bite of chocolate cake? And everybody in here right now, if you like chocolate, you're thinking, poor chocolate cake, that does sound like that'd be good for lunch, doesn't it? Because you see, law has no power but to define sin. If I put somebody in law, all I'm going to do is make them want it more. Years ago, during the Reagan administration, Nancy Reagan, the First Lady, came out with a really good idea on paper. And that was, I know how we can end the drug problem. Let's just say no. Well, now that sounds wonderful, but I want to ask you something. The Just Say No program has been in effect since the Reagan administration, and our drug problems is worse than ever. Why? But the people in law does not change it. To tell somebody just don't do it. Wives, don't spend your time trying to make your husband not like football, or not like golf, or not like car racing, or not like this thing or that thing. Husbands, don't spend your time trying to make your wife not like some things, not like shopping, or not like doing whatever hobby or friends that she pursues, not like those things. Learn to be understanding. Have grace. Have mercy. Because you see, whenever we start talking about salvation, do you know what God compares the church and salvation to? The home, the husband, the wife relationship. That covenant relationship is just like that covenant relationship that we have with God. Remember, we talked about when we take the Lord's Supper, we seek more of the face of God than we do His hand. And we've got to seek the person, not just what they can do for us, or potentially what they can do for us. You know, sometimes we get married because we think they're going to make us happy. No, the news is going to wear off that marriage, and in 2 years they're going to be in trouble. And he doesn't make me happy anymore. I'm not in love with her anymore. That's just a cycle that goes in. Whenever I preach on love and marriage, one thing we'll point out, it is a human behavioral principle, a psychological fact. Marriage lasts no more than 2 years. And then within that 2 years, you're going to have to do something to either restrike that marriage or promote that, restrike that love, or give it a kickstart to get it going once again. Because there's just so long you can be infatuated with an individual before that wears off. You know what's the longest or the largest divorce rate is? You know what it is? Second year marriage. You know why? Because that's about how long love lasts. But if you know how to talk the love language, and we'll talk about that. Well, in 1 Corinthians 13, Paul knew we needed that, so he included that through inspiration. That this is how you keep and respark and rekindle and regenerate that love So it lasts and lasts and lasts. But this morning, he says, love one another as Christ loved the church and gave himself for it. This morning, maybe you're not a child of God, you need to become one. Marriage is more than just a husband and wife. Proverbs says that a three-strand cord is not easily broken. We are to develop strong marriages that are three-strand cords. Husband, wife, and Jesus. See, it's not just you and your wife or you and your husband. If you'll put Jesus in there, it's not easily broken. So this morning, if you need to put your Lord on in baptism, I want to encourage you to do that while you get upstairs.